Hey there, Knicks fans. Thank the good Lord that the Knicks had more fucking chutzpah to start off their playoff debut than we had to start off our playoff debut. Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show. Presented, of course, by our friends at Fanatics, who you just heard me talk about. All right. Let's get into this game. I have DJ Zullo here with me. DJ, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. That was a hell of a lot of fun. It wasn't fun throughout the game, but man, you'll get into it. But we had a lot of questions about this team's grit, grind, all the things that we questioned. They passed it all in spades in this one with a hellacious fourth quarter performance that was phenomenal to watch.
Well, are you a religious man? Are you a man of the faith, DJ?
I mean, I can be.
Because I don't know if you know, tomorrow is Easter Sunday.
It's
and I have an announcement for everybody out there. Came a day early, but Christ, he hath risen. And his name is Payne, and he has some big old balls the size of Chauncey Billups. Or no, sorry, not Chauncey Billups, Sam Cassell.
Yes.
I got my reserve early 2000s guards confused. No, that was a special performance by a guy who I think in a game where it's funny, we were talking about it. We did the playback watch along and we were talking about how, Cat was having a good game, but not getting many shots. And Brunson was obviously having his struggles, and Mikal Bridges not really making the big impact. And OG Anunoby, big impact on defense and on offense in the first half, but a little bit too much OG on offense in the second half. And the defensive impact started to wane. And you're sitting there, and this team is down by 9 points. And you're like, oh my God, the Pistons are really going to steal this game. And I asked you on the playback, or I said to you on the playback, I said, it feels like someone off the bench is going to need to come in and give them a spark, because you looked at the Pistons and you looked at what they were able to do. Cade hadn't even had a good game, and they're up by 9. And why are they up by 9? They're up by 9 because of all these role players who, granted, had been to the playoffs before. Your Tobias Harris's, your Malik Beasley's, your Tim Hardaway Jr.'s of the world. But so who is it going to be for the Knicks? Because the guys that had done it in big spots all year, your premium, your headliners, it felt like it was going to take something else, something more. And look, we're going to talk about what those headliners did. It ended up being a phenomenal game, all things considered, from Jalen Brunson. It ended up being a phenomenal game, certainly from Karl-Anthony Towns. Boy, we're going to talk about him. And it ended up being a phenomenal game from OG Anunoby, some other heroes, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson. We're going to talk about all of them.
Yep.
But we have to start with Payne. There is no place to start other than with Payne, because when the snowball got rolling downhill, it started to pick up steam, but someone needed to get that sucker going. Someone needed to do the work, the hard part, to craft that thing when he was getting pelted from left and right. And sure enough, it was the guy who many, many times this season, when the Knicks needed a spark off the bench, he has been there. And on a minimum contract, playing in front of a guy that I know a lot of Knicks fans throughout the course of the year would have much rather seen in Payne's place. Because you always love the rookies, right?
Mm-hmm.
He withstood that charge. He withstood, any Kolek notions, any DeLon Wright notions. Hell, you had idiots like me saying before the playoffs that I didn't know if Payne was going to be a member of the rotation. I thought they were going to go more to Landry Shamet, and his shooting shows what the hell I know. And Payne paid off that faith. Let's start there. What do you got, Deej?
Well, listen, there were 2 points in that game, in that fourth quarter. You mentioned the 9-point lead. In the fourth quarter, 2 different times, Pistons had 8-point leads, 96-88. Payne gets downhill, left-hand finish at the rim, 6-point lead. Pistons score again. It's an 8-point lead again. Now Payne goes down with his right hand, getting to the basket, which has not always been his strong suit, finishing at the rim. Finishes again, getting downhill, getting the lead back down to 6. And then the 3-point shooting, the step backs, the catch and shoot started to build. And now the momentum was had. It started with Payne sort of stopping the bleeding, and then he was the catalyst getting the Knicks tied and then eventually in the lead. Listen, we knew this about him in terms of the confidence, in terms of the being unafraid of the moment.
Because he's been there.
He's been there. He's done this. He's been in NBA Finals games. He doesn't have fear of the moment. That Knicks team was on the verge of having a loss that was going to bring a lot of uncomfortable questions about not only the series, but beyond. He brought them back from the brink, and obviously he needed help to get him over the finish line. They aren't in contention in that game to have Towns impact the game on the defensive end, to have Brunson perform so well in the fourth quarter on offense, if it wasn't for Payne keeping them afloat. And my God, he had the whole thing going. And then you couldn't, to his credit, he was good enough on the defensive end to the point where you could ride the offense a little more and not feel like you're giving up something on the defensive end. And we saw Knicks, whether it was Shamet, Payne in the first half, get beat on some off-ball screening for Beasley threes. So the concern was, Payne's performing well on offense, but what is he holding his own on defense? I thought he did. And it was a monumental fourth quarter performance for a guy that's been an incredible Knick, considering the contract, considering the role he was supposed to play and has played. You can't say anything more, anything less about how he played. An incredible performance. And listen, it's not by accident that Payne and Towns, once again, that duo, which has been, as we talked about on playback, a phenomenal duo all season long. Once again, they're the two that get the Knicks going. I think the way they play off each other, I think is, especially on the offensive end, is a big deal. You're right to lead with Payne. There's other guys we'll get to, but my God, what a performance.
The ceiling of this team, whether you're talking about this year or whether you're talking about assuming that they keep the core of this team together into the offseason and beyond, the ceiling of this team comes from how well Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson can amplify each other's games to the degree that, and they are, I mean, as we saw in this game, certainly in the second half for Jalen Brunson and really the entire game for Karl-Anthony Towns, they are brilliant offensive players. But like it will come from how well they amplify each other's games. In the interim, you have Karl-Anthony Towns on your team, and he is the biggest tactical advantage that you are going to have on most nights. So for right now, there is an argument that him playing with Payne, who is just I don't know if I want to call him a meat and potatoes pick and roll point guard, but he is like, he does all the things in the way that if you're a Karl-Anthony Towns and you're looking to play with another guard who is going to get you into opportunities and situations where you can be successful, is not that Payne? Like that's who he is. And that's what the role he plays on this team. To put a number on it, by the way, for the year, plus in 1,421 non-garbage time possessions, that is not an insignificant sample size. Plus 10.6, 89th percentile offense, 121.2, 84th percentile defense, 110.6. And that's the next place I think we have to turn in this conversation, because I am curious to go listen to some Detroit Pistons post-game shows, because I wonder, I mean, I can think of a lot of things that they're going to be talking about. And part of it's going to be the fact that, oh my God, did we just blow our chance to win this series because we just came into Madison Square Garden in game one, shot 47% from deep, 46.9 to be exact. And we somehow did not only did we not come away with the game, with the win, it was a double-digit loss. I'm sure that they're going to be talking about that. But I wonder how much they're going to be talking about the fact that they could not exploit the Knicks having two small, like traditional sized point guards on the floor at the same time down the stretch of that game. And I think the Knicks overall, their defense, and this is obviously going to transition into the Towns conversation, deserves all the credit in the world for that. Yeah,
Towns, he got credit for 2 steals in the fourth quarter, but he got his hands on many more deflections, and he was as active, as aggressive as we've seen him all year. And, you know, the big adjustment that many of us thought would take place is that they would have Towns more aggressive at the level of the screen. That did play out. Now, listen, it wasn't always perfect. He got beat, especially in the second half, a few different times in that third quarter, specifically for Cade Cunningham forays to the basket. But generally speaking, I thought he held up okay on that end. But it was more the backline defense of Towns in that fourth quarter. You mentioned the verticality at the rim during the playback against Thompson, against Duren. Both guys. And the Knicks struggled finishing at the rim in the first quarter, second quarter. They were great finishing at the rim in the fourth quarter. Pistons struggled. A lot of that is Karl-Anthony Towns just being big and large, which, listen, gives you a baseline competency as a defender, or it should be if you're engaged and your effort is there. And you see Towns with the effort, with the engagement, be a problem for the Pistons who, listen, Duren, he's an undersized center. Stewart, an undersized center. The Knicks have positional size that transcends what the Pistons have, especially in the forward center room.
Yes.
Knicks took advantage of that, and it wore the Pistons down in the second half. And Towns, with this, we had not seen the hand activity at this level. That's been my biggest gripe with him. Like, he can get his feet in the right positions, but the hand activity leaves a lot to be desired many times. But tonight he was active, he was engaged, as I said, and he created havoc, which is something we have not had the wonder to say in this Knicks season. He was that good on the defensive end with his hands getting deflections and just causing mayhem. So
I said at the end of the playback that we were going to talk about whether, because we said before the game started, I think I don't know if we agreed, but I certainly felt this way, and it seemed like you were on the same page, that the Knicks were going to be hard pressed to do anything in this game that would materially change our opinion on their ceiling as a basketball team this season. They were either going to come out and be like, all right, good, they did what they were supposed to do, but we still have XYZ questions, or they were going to have a bad loss. Now, we were trending towards a bad loss, and I do, like, look, the vibes are very good right now. That sort of thing happens when you go on a 21-0 fourth quarter run. Oh my God, that actually happened. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you thought went wrong. But sure enough, we're sitting here after one game against the Pistons, which I know the Detroit Pistons are not a great offense. They're a mediocre offense. And does everything the Knicks were able to do defensively against them in that fourth quarter, and what Towns specifically was able to do against them in the fourth quarter, will that translate to the elite offenses? Not in maybe the same way. But the fact that we're sitting here and we're talking about a Karl-Anthony Towns defensive performance that was better than any of the 82 games, well, however many games he played. I think he played in 72 games. Yeah. Than any of those games he played during the regular season. And I don't even have to think that hard. Like, that was easily, in terms of the spot, in terms of the pressure on him, in terms of what the Knicks were asking him to do and how active they were asking him, requiring him to be. And then for him to go down the other end and finish the game with 23 points on 14 shots, 10 of 14 from the field, along with 5 assists. And you mentioned he had 2 fourth quarter steals, 4 steals a total, 2 blocks. It's weird. Campaign for me, I think I agree we had to start with Campaign. I think Karl's the player of the game.
Yeah, if you consider both ends of the floor, I agree. And just hit on the offense a little bit. There were some shot making there.
Oh my goodness! Where
both of us are just like, how the skill that this 7-footer can display on an NBA floor. The floater that he hit, I think it was 91-83. Might have been right after that 5-second violation the Knicks forced, where he hits a floater going to his left across his body, going back right.
91-80. Made it 91-85. Yeah,
made it 91-85. An incredibly difficult shot. He made a couple turnarounds along the baseline. He did not, despite the 10 of 14, it wasn't like he was being served up layups and dunks at the rim. Like, these were tough contested shots, and he's just that level of shot maker. And then you also saw his co-star Jalen Brunson, after struggling, and we both referenced, like, they had shades of game 1, game 2 against Philadelphia last season.
They were good shots.
They were good shots. that he just wasn't missing. Now I think both of us a little concerned regarding the foot ankle being compromising some of his explosion.
Yep.
But it was just like, he talked about Brunson being hunted. Fourth quarter, it was Tobias Harris, come, let's dance. And Brunson beat him time and time again, getting into the paint, finished with 34 points on 27 shots, didn't even play well. And it's still for a playoff game, a relatively efficient performance for Jalen Brunson. I thought the way that he got himself going, and then I think you touched on it as well in playback, while he wasn't perfect on defense, never felt like he was being played off the floor.
No.
And so compromising on the defensive end. He held his own, which is all you can ask for at this point.
It's such an important distinction. To go back to Cat very briefly, and then we'll go on. That key stretch you're referencing, that you reference with the runner that made it 91-85. He then, and you said it, he was exceptional on the following Detroit Pistons possession, where you said it, he arrived at the screen. So he wasn't late. He arrived as the screen was there, which made all the difference in that possession. It became Nick Ball. I forget if it was a missed shot or a turnover. And then after that, he comes down and he hits a three, which was big. The Pistons still made another push. They still got the lead back up, but that early stretch from Cat was big. Yeah. As far as Brunson goes, I mean, he was getting wherever he wanted and making pretty much everything in the second half. It's funny. We were sitting there talking about this is one of the worst halves, of Jalen Brunson's playoff career as a Knick in the first half. Dude finishes with 34 points. Yeah. On 27 shots, 8 assists, 1 turnover. And if you want to say the biggest difference in the game was that Pistons 19 turnovers, Knicks 9 turnovers. That's the second game in a row.
6 for Cade Cunningham. So and that's been the big, other than the finishing at the basket, that's been the big issue for him as an NBA player. That's the difference when you compare the two stars that control the basketball. One's loose with it, one keeps it contained and doesn't give you turnovers. Big deal.
Big deal. And the Knicks, I would say in general, save for the one turnover Brunson did have, was almost drove us through a freaking wall at the end of the game there. But yeah, I mean, look, the Pistons got a little rattled late. Some of those turnovers are not the sort of thing that they're going to do in normal circumstances. I mean, they had this crazy run go against them. We'll talk about Cade a little bit more in a little bit, but I think actually the way to start the Cade conversation is to talk about the next guy, which is OG Anunoby.
Yeah.
So, in retrospect, that was the biggest tactical decision out of the gate from Tom Thibodeau to put OG on Cade. Cade's final line in this game, 8 for 21, as you referenced, 6 turnovers. He did have 12 assists. But again, 21 points on 21 shots, even with the 12 assists, when you factor in the 6 turnovers, like if you're the Pistons, you're just not going to be able to win a basketball game. If this is what you're getting from Cade Cunningham, how are you feeling as far as whether or not OG is going to be able to keep this up, and whether or not the Knicks or the Pistons are going to be able to bring any sort of adjustment that is going to make it easier for Cade to get going from here?
I think it's tough if you're Detroit. I do. I think you saw how much Anunoby's physicality of just keeping his arm into the hip of Cade and just making every four-way into the paint a little bit tougher. And it's just at the margins, he's taking away just a little bit from the field goal percentage. He's not blocking shots, but he's making the shots just a little bit more difficult over a sample size of a game and a series that matters. I think the Pistons went away, and I would love to get the numbers on the ball screens that Cade ended up running overall in the game, but it seemed to me, at least in the first half, they really went away from it because I think they were worried about Anunoby and his screen navigation being impactful in that area. So it was a lot of Cade running into DHOs, get actions where he can pass the ball, follow it, get some momentum, or just catching it almost at the elbow inside the 3-point line.
Yeah.
In the second half, it seemed, at least the first possession, to try to get Cade back into his normal rhythm. And you saw him start to maybe find his way against Anunoby, but it was fleeting. And Anunoby, again, in the third quarter, it seemed where he took the foot off the gas a little bit. pushed the gas a little bit further in this fourth quarter, turned the defense up again. Cat, again, impactful at the level. When we say Riley at the screen, so there was one in the third quarter where he's late, so he's sprinting up while Cade is now rejecting and getting downhill. That's too hard for Cat to sort of have to contain in that way. When he arrives at the screen, he could be in a proper defensive stance and corral contain. That's the pairing where you can support each other as a pick and roll duo on the defensive end. But I think for me, I'm more confident in OG continuing to make life tough on Cunningham. And I don't know, standing here right now, if the Pistons have an easy adjustment based on that matchup. Like there's probably things it's like you lean more into getting Brunson involved in as many actions as possible.
Bringing Brunson's man up to screen. But if it's OG,
he gets through the screen.
He gets through those screens.
Against a Hardaway or a Beasley. He's getting, so that's the conundrum that I think Bickerstaff is going to have to face in this interim before game 2 to try to figure out how to manufacture some space for Cade to operate. This was, while Anunoby didn't have it going in the second half offensively, the impact of a guy that can score the way he did in the first half. And listen, I have some critiques about the level of shot attempts in terms of the difficulty, but he kept the Knicks connected in the first half with his shot making. And then in the second half, he's able to just dominate at times on the defensive end. That's the two-way ability that makes the max contract worth it, that gives him all NBA defense votes. That's going to make this guy, if he continues this, a borderline all NBA player. Like that's the level of performance we've seen now for a 20-game stretch. I thought he was, as a whole, a phenomenal two-way player tonight. And I don't know if the Pistons have a easiest solution to try to get him off of Cunningham, save for foul trouble and just getting him off the floor.
Yeah. And regarding the offense, well, actually two things, because let's stick with OG for a second. We're watching the game, and I said it the very first made shot for OG Anunoby, which was a tough make, and I'm like, well, the Pistons will probably live with that. And then we kept referencing the concept of like, man, yeah, OG's going off, but this seems to be playing maybe into Detroit's hands. If we're sitting here and we're looking at a first half where OG Anunoby takes twice as many shots as Karl-Anthony Towns. If you're JB Bickerstaff, you're throwing a party over that. Mm-hmm. So there's like a very, I feel like it's a very small gray area where it's like, all right, we're taking what the defense gives us, but like, at what point do we want? Are we taking too much of it, and do we want to start pivoting off? And not to sound like Tibbs, but the game tells you what to do. I thought the Knicks, as it got into the fourth quarter, and again, campaign. All the credit in the world for this, but like they got Townsend going. They obviously Jalen Brunson got himself going. That's what I was going to say before regarding the Knicks defense generally. I thought their switching when it was time to switch and when the opportunity was there to switch was pretty on point today. We did not see it. There were a couple moments of confusion, which definitely cost them, but overall, I thought their connectivity and their communication was okay on that end.
Yeah, I thought that, there was, again, the Brunson got beat once in the first quarter. Yep. Then there was another closeout where, it seemed like Anunoby wanted to continue following Cade on a downhill drive.
Yep.
And then he ended up having to switch late onto Hardaway, who beat him on a closeout. Again, you could pick apart and find one or two possessions. Overall, I thought the Knicks defense was very good. I thought the Pistons actually, their shot making, especially quarters 1 through 3, so defied some of the Knicks defense. I thought the Knicks defended well throughout the game. The Pistons, to their credit, didn't last the full game, but they made some tough shots, especially Beasley, Tobias Harris in the first half as well.
Beasley missed. He had a couple opportunities in the fourth that he missed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're Detroit, you could look at 20 points on 16 shots from Malik Beasley, including 6 of 12 from deep, and be like, well, he'll be better next game. I mean, the man shot 50% from 3. Yeah. Tobias Harris, I know he was, a 0 in the second half. Tobias Harris is not the sort of guy that's going to start the game with 22 points in the first half and finish with 40. He's the guy who's going to start the game. If he does get 22 in the first half, which you're not counting on, he's liable to finish the game with what he did today, which is, but still 25 points on 13 shots. You're not doing better than that. And Tim Hardaway Jr., man, once a Knick, always a Knick. Really big 19 points on 13 shots for him. I thought Schroeder, 3 of 8, but like I thought he was okay.
It was a little almost like, again, that's where he gets like, it's like too much. There's like a little more like, I got this moment here where but to your point, I thought he impacted it. It just, he didn't strike the right balance.
Yeah. Duren got you 5 offensive rebounds that I thought were impactful. You know, maybe you could say if you're Detroit, we'll get a little bit more from Isaiah Stewart next game. We already talked about the Cade Cunningham piece of it. Like, I think if you're the Knicks, you should feel okay overall, which is why I guess, well, let's hit a couple things and then we'll get to the super chats. I'm sure there's a lot of people with a lot of comments. The Mitchell Robinson minutes with Karl-Anthony Towns on the first half, we talked about that. They were very good, even though I know the numbers don't maybe necessarily say they were good. They got outscored during that time. I thought Mitch helped really solidify the defense on Cade Cunningham in that second quarter, especially. It was the most extended stretch we've seen of Mitch and Cat together. What did you think of that stretch, and what did you think of them or Tibbs not really going back to it, or actually maybe not going back to it at all in the second half, and perhaps the reason why he didn't go back to it?
Yeah, it was 9 minutes, and that was all first half minutes for the Towns Robinson pairing. Yeah, I thought Robinson specifically was, where he just shows, he's got a unique ability to defend in ball screens, and the broadcast mentioned it. He was just he's so good contesting threes. He got Cade I don't know if he got the block, but he forced a really bad miss on one.
It was an air ball. Yeah,
it was an air ball. Yeah, that's all Mitch contesting with that left hand again with the right hand shooter. He's elite at that. Had some offensive rebounds. Had the one putback that was just with the right hand that was incredible. His minutes were, and then we talked about it. Was that more Josh Hart foul trouble? Was that more the way those two were playing? We got the answer in the second half with Josh Hart playing more and obviously performing better as that game went along. But I think you saw where the Towns Robinson duo can really provide so much size length on that back line, especially with Anunoby in the game. It's really tough to generate clean looks when you can specifically shrink the floor against a team that has some shooters that you can play off of and really leave alone. It's a really nice kind of counter that the Knicks can now go to. And I thought Robinson looked good. I don't mind that Tibbs didn't go to it in the second half, because I really thought Hart's verve, and the thing that I always talk about with him is like, it's not just the numbers, it's how he's performing. Offensive rebound, it led to, I think, a campaign 3.
Yes. Right? And also, speaking of 3-pointers, it came amidst a Brunson injury scare because he was on the ground. So big 3-pointer Josh Hart hit in the
which I missed because I was watching Brunson lay on the floor, and all of a sudden I see the ball go through the rim. I don't even remember Hart shooting it. Huge play, great point. Knicks ended up shooting, by the way, after struggling, finishing with layups. So they're 10 of 20 on layups. Quarters 1 through 3. They ended up going 10 of 12 on layups in the fourth quarter. Shout out Pivot Fade for those numbers.
And a lot of that were open in transition and things, but still, that's massive turnaround.
Massive turnaround, but also speaks to the Knicks getting out in transition. Hart being the driver of that, both as a playmaker and as a finisher. It's beating a dead horse. But again, if the Knicks are moving in transition and getting good offense there, Josh Hart is usually the one driving that. And he really did in that fourth quarter. And they're going to need that element to generate good offense against a good defense.
I don't want to end on a down note, so I'll think of something to end on a high note before we get to the super chats. But you had mentioned that the game was going in a direction where we were going to have to start asking some troubling questions. Just speak to that a little bit, because it was, at one point they were down by 9 points, I think early in the fourth quarter in this game. Down by 9.
And listen, Mikal Bridges was a no-show in a game where I thought he came out in a way in the first few possessions, like you were going to be able to get some, maybe not a 25 plus game, but a game to where he's scoring 18 to 22 efficiently, which I thought the Knicks were going to end up needing. Now, Anunoby was good enough in the first half to maybe keep the Knicks attached and sort of take the mantle as the third option there. But, Bridges, it's the same sort of story with him where kind of floats through the game, and a lot, you don't never really know how much of that is the play calling, the point guard. There's a lot of things, but again, he didn't have that aggression to demand the offense and to take advantage of some, I thought, really advantageous matchups. And then again, he's not guarding Cunningham, so you're not gaining this on-ball value. So I didn't love the game.
He had some nice defensive moments here and there.
He did. Well, he actually, to that point, he had a really impressive stop against Tobias Harris. It was like game was teetering for Detroit, and they just come out of a timeout.
Post up. Yep.
They draw up a simple isolation post up for Tobias Harris. Bridges on an island, no help. Takes it, forces a really tough shot. So you didn't get a great game out of him. Shamet came in, I thought, struggled defensively. Didn't really see much of him, if at all, in the second half. I don't think he ended up coming back in the game. Did not play in the second half. And then McBride, I thought, turned it up defensively and was part of the Knicks really turning that game around on that end. But the shot making, I think, missed his only 2 threes. Didn't seem like he had a lot going on that. You're not going to get Payne to have this performance every night. So it's Bridges, McBride, Shamet too. Knicks are going to have to get more out of those 3, but Bridges is the one, and you never know who's completely at fault. But again, back to players have agency. We need more from Mikal Bridges for the Knicks to, again, talk about ceiling to get to that point.
Love that. So ending on a high note, I think we could go with this, which is that it wasn't until later in the game that we really saw the Knicks go to the Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson pick and roll. And I think looking forward, at least for this series, I don't think we have evidence to suggest at this point that the Detroit Pistons are capable of stopping that pick and roll. So I think, so I think that's a super encouraging sign. We did talk throughout the game about, could you go to Towns more with this mismatch? Is there going to be a game here where he needs to maybe get in the muck a little bit more and post up more regularly? Possible. He ended up putting up 3 threes. The opportunity was not really there because of how the Pistons were guarding him. So, but when he had him, he, took him. The one he made was a big one. I think if you're a Knicks fan, you have to feel pretty good coming out of this game, don't you?
Yeah. And I think you're 100% right. And just on the pick and roll stuff. So it was getting Tobias Harris, who they were switching on the Brunson getting to his spots. It's familiar because you saw Brunson make a lot of shots and get a lot of easy baskets last season against Tobias Harris in isolation in the playoffs. So that's certainly a familiar sort of matchup for him. Got comfortable there, found Towns in a short roll. That was a big moment where Towns looked like he was going up for a floater, ended up passing at the last moment. Josh Hart for a finish at the rim. Beautiful play. You're right. That pick and roll, that option, they sort of just like, all right, we're just going to lean on our 2 guys, which has not been the case through most of the year now in terms of like being the bellwethers of this offense. And they brought the Knicks home, and it was those 2 guys with Payne to do it. Brunson 12, Payne 11, Towns had 7 points, but the 3 assists as well, plus 19 in the fourth quarter for him. He was just like, he took what the defense gave him, and we always want him to sort of like give a little more in terms of just the aggression of the shots he's taken. But I thought it was a really good floor game for Towns, passing, shot making, and then of course the defense really strong. He is the player of the game on both sides of the floor for me as well. Well,
Pat Riley, who I know we don't like to talk about here, but once said that a playoff series does not start until the road team wins a game. Detroit, all they need to do is get one of these. So, and this is the only portion of the series we should note where the turnaround time is, for the first round at least, quicker. These 2 teams will play again on Monday. So the Knicks' job is not done yet. Got to go out there, got to win game 2. Take care of business, and then you go back to Detroit and you try to steal one of those and then close it out in game 5 at home, or maybe even better than that. But one thing at a time. You can't go back to Detroit up 2-0 unless you win game 1. So they did that. One of the great Knick runs of all time. An all-time Knick bench supporting performance from Payne, and your stars showing why they are paid the way they are and why they are going to get the postseason accolades that they will get in terms of Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, All-NBA, OG Anunoby, All-Defense. A lot of good stuff if you're a Knick fan. So hopefully the vibes on this post game are good. But before we get there, DJ, you're hanging out for Betting and Sweating. Yes, we are back. Betting and Sweating. We are very, very proud and happy to bring back this segment. It went away for a while, but now it is back with a vengeance because courtesy of and presented by our friends at Fanatics Sportsbook. A bunch of us made picks ahead of this game. We're going to look at those picks right now. I know I won my pick because Andrew texted me ahead of time, and I'm like, I'm not overthinking this. Mm-hmm. What's the Jalen Brunson points number? 27? Oh, how many times last postseason did he score more than 27 points? Oh, okay. Yeah. Give me the over. So I took the over. That was a win for me. Deuce McBride.
You had to sweat that one out a little bit. As the game was going on.
Maybe in the first half, there was a little bit of sweating. More sweating than betting, but it was fine. Sean with a W, as he is wont to do, gets cute. Sean's always got to look cute, and he went with Deuce McBride, 2 or more threes made. Sorry, Sean, that's going to be a loss for you. And then Andrew Claudio, Karl-Anthony Towns. I actually haven't even done the math here. 39 points plus rebounds plus assists. So we got 23 plus 11 is 34 plus 5 is 39.
Look at that.
So he gets it by a half.
He gets 39.
He got to 39 by one, 39. By a half.
Good job, Andrew.
Well done, Andrew Claudio. Again, those are your betting and sweating picks presented by our friends at Fanatics Sportsbook. Again, very excited about that partnership, which is we're gonna be doing these throughout the rest of the postseason. Be sure to check back on every Knick game on game day during the postseason, where you will get a chance to see our betting and sweating picks, as well as Andrew and Sean went live to discuss some different picks before this game. So stay tuned for those on our YouTube channel, and much more where that came from very soon. But right now, DJ, I'm going to bid you adieu. Final thoughts here before I let you go.
You mentioned one of the great fourth quarter runs in the history of the franchise in the playoffs. And I think there was some aspects of the game that I think the Knicks can feel great that it's going to continue throughout the series, specifically how OG Anunoby was able to stifle Cade Cunningham. I don't think the Pistons have a great counter to that. And I think that's going to be where the Knicks feel the most confident in terms of slowing down their offense. Then on the offensive side for the Knicks, I thought the floor game in general was really strong from most of their big time players, and of course Payne. Fun blast of a game. I thought the Pistons showed a little youthful lack of experience there and some spots got a little tight.
Yeah,
you would assume in game 2 that's maybe a little bit better. So I'm not gonna say here that I feel confident the Knicks are gonna walk all over them in game 2, but I feel more confident, obviously, in the way the series is gonna go standing here right now than I did before the series started, and that's based on some things that I think are going to carry over throughout the rest of the season. So our series, and it was a fun one to watch, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Celebrate this one, and we'll get at it again on Monday.
Sounds great, man. DJ, it's a pleasure to have you as always. And for anybody who may not be aware, you can find a whole lot more of DJ Zullo and his analysis of this basketball team on the Knicks Film School Patreon, where we're putting out bonus podcasts. DJ's putting out film work, mailbag question and answers, Benji's extended grade books, which you'll have certainly after game 1. So if you cannot get enough of your analysis, the top-notch analysis of the Knicks, go check out Knicks Film School on Patreon, where DJ is one of the stars there. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you very much.
Appreciate it. Enjoy it.
All right. Later.
See you, Kev.
All right. I'm ready, baby. I got it. So I feel good about this one. You know, a lot of questions about this team. A lot of questions about this team coming into this postseason. And I think some of those questions were, for me, most of those questions really did not have to do with X's and O's. It had to do with what is the metal of this team? What's their makeup? You know, when the going gets tough, who's going to be there to answer the bell? Are they collectively going to be there to answer the bell? And to be down 9 against a team that was feeling real good about itself, and to come back with that response, I got to tell you, I'm feeling a lot better about this team today than I was yesterday. And it's not because of the X's and O's. It's not because Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns made a bunch of stops. It's not even because, OG Anunoby stifled Cade Cunningham for the better part of this game. I think there was maybe more of a togetherness and more of a belief and more of a camaraderie within that locker room than maybe I gave it credit for after what was a very difficult season.